All right, hello, I'm Sam DuRegger of Begin the Work. Really excited to share this presentation with you guys. I presented this at the OKC Tech conference, March 27th. Had a great time with that team. It was held at the Verge, which is a absolutely beautiful co-working space in downtown Oklahoma City. And I wanted to go through these slides. Maybe it won't be as animated as I was in real time, but I wanted to get some of this down and for posterity's sake. So a bit of a confession before we begin. I don't want to be labeled necessarily as an AI talking head. I've really balked at writing about AI, talking about AI. Well, because quite frankly, AI is still an emerging tech. It's an emerging thing. As we've had AI around for a long time, we've been talking about AI. Products have been labeled AI products for over 20 years, using queries and algorithms to produce a particular result or automated result. I think it's just so emerging and so such an enigma that it's sometimes hard to do a presentation on the subject. At the actual conference, I did start with this next slide, which was just really a glossary to make sure we are all on the same page at the little event there on things that I might be hitting on. So large language models or LLMs, small language models, SLMs, RAGs, which is really a retrieval augmented generation. Think of it as like a chatbot that is looking at a particular set of a knowledge base and then responding based on that knowledge base. Where LLMs, SLMs, and ML machine learning requires training, a RAG just requires an indexed file in a location for that AI to retrieve it. Really an algorithm, I talked about that before. We've talked about AI for a long time. Algorithms, if that, then this, has been something that's been around for a long time, and I think it's important to note, has been labeled as AI. Robotic process automation, RPA processes. We'll talk a little bit about hallucinations, because AI is pretty confident in answering some things, even though it might be false. Prompt engineering, that's where we craft exactly what we're going to be prompting so it gets a robust answer. And then conversational UX is a model that helps us respond used in machine learning in a more conversational way. So those are the glossary terms that I kind of cover. That way, at least you won't be hearing these things for the first time in the context of the talk. So what is an AI, right? AI is, it drives cars, it automates emails. I was on a call the other morning in which AI was our note taker and produced a nice set of notes and to-dos post-call. So AI in particular can be a lot of different things. I'm sure some of you have used AI or ChatGPT as a therapist, maybe don't raise your hand. As a date matcher, it's our news curator. AR is our restaurant recommender. It's our recipe helper. It's our ghost writer. My brother is a horror novel writer and comic strip writer, and he may or may not be using AI to ghostwrite. You might be doing some vibe coding with AI. There's a lot of things that AI is doing. It's the photographer who took my LinkedIn photo, the one my daughter says is me with a large forehead and a little skinnier than I am today. Thank you, AI. I appreciate that. So AI is really, been the new thing. It's a new buzzword, the new pitch deck. If you don't have it in your pitch deck, what are you doing? AI is everything, everywhere, all at once. And, with all of that buzz, it seems like it's been a new kid on the block, but actually, like I said, it's been around for a long time. But for me, the buzz is really relevant because I've been excited about getting to the point where we can have data from Star Trek or C-3PO or R2-D2 or Rosie, as you see here on the slide from the Jetsons, Will Robinson's robot. And, my favorite AI robot of all time would have to be Isaac, the Kalon emissary to the Planetary Union and Chief Science and Engineering Officer aboard the USS Orville. Great show. The Orville is a show that if you're thinking about AI, you gotta watch, because the entire, I think 3 seasons, is a fantastic philosophical adventure into what is AI, what can AI do, is it good or bad? Fantastic. So we're living, every young nerd's dream, right? Interfacing with a potentially conscious, maybe sentient interface of bits, wires, nodes, memory chips, networks that we might call large language models or AI. Well, the truth is we're really in the next great wave of exploration, one that some might think will lead to dystopia and others to utopia. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the chances of human extinction at the hands of our creations. I don't want to spend time on those type of dystopia problems, but I do want to spend some time on where AI fits into the larger contract but I do want to spend some time on where AI fits into the larger context of truth and reality as we know it. So as a species, we're infatuated with truth, uncovering it, finding it, speaking it, and unfortunately really good at abusing it. You could say that truth is one of America's first competitive advantages. Now, go with me for a second. Starting with Luther's 95 Thesis in 1517, the reverberations of the Reformation that followed as the printing press dispatched knowledge in the form of Bibles and Bible commentary. But it was really the first great awakening in the 1730s to 40s that personalized truth and planted it firmly in American soil. So again, the printing press was fantastic in that it gave the ability for the Bibles to be printed. But what it also did is allowed commentary, opinions on the Bible to be printed. And so you have the rise of doctrines, the split, right, from the Catholic Church into many different doctrines. Protestantism begins in the U.S. Just a quick little history run on religion and where we get some of these things. I think the Declaration of Independence is based on some of that work in the Reformation, in the Great Awakening, where it says in the second paragraph, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So again, the Declaration asserts that truth can be known by all, right, innately. Protestant deconstructed that intermediary between God and man, contrary to Catholicism. So Protestants assert a personal relationship with God, that we can know God and thereby know truth. So in a world of AI, what does that background mean? Before we go into that, postmodernism quickly followed. And in postmodernism, if Protestants believed that there was one truth, one God, postmodernists carried this notion even further, with the assertion that truth is relative, subjective to the individual, group, time, and or place. So truth is not a reality because there are many truths and therefore many different realities. Just like Protestantism set that up, right? Protestantism said that there are many truths, right? And those many truths became doctrine, etc. So truth is not reality. Now, maybe you're not with me. Maybe you're not agreeing with me that truth is subjective, that reality is made up of many opinions, many truths of what is and isn't right. So how can I better show this? Maybe I could show a little math problem and we can get all on the same page. So 1 + 1 in everyone's math book, right, says it equals 2. But in reality, it only equals 2 sometimes. And a quick little illustration of that is if I take one puddle and add it to another puddle, what do I get? One big puddle. So 1 + 1 in this instance can equal 1. So I'll pause there. Everybody going with me? So there are many truths. Reality is not necessarily truth because truth is made up of many realities. All right, so in the age of AI, you've got this set of principles, the AI dogma, set of principles laid down by an AI system model as truth. So again, whose truth are we talking about? And I think that's where I get into this list right here, that AI is not truth, it is many truths. China's truth, Russia's truth, Facebook, Google, Elon's, Sam Altman's, all of these models are only able to deduce the truth based upon the data that they've been fed. Again, an AI model's dogma, its truth is based on the data that it's been trained on. So like the Great Awakening in the 1700s, we're seeing an explosion of AI models, just as we saw an explosion of churches and denominations within the US out of the Great Awakening, each with their own doctrine, each with their own truth to proselytize to the masses. So again, AI is not one truth, it's an amalgamation of many truths, each with their own biases, historical beliefs, and virtues lack thereof. My guess is we'll see a proliferation of AI models in democratic nations and a tightening of AI models in countries with roots in communism, socialism. Already you see an explosion of AI models in the US and a smaller number in those more communist-leaning countries. And so very important, because if you're seeking an answer on Tiananmen Square in a China AI model, you might not get the history that we know from a United States model, because reality is going to be different in those two places. Are we all on the same page there? Okay. So AI is only as good as the data that feeds it, right? Also, AI is only as bad as the data that feeds it. Good or bad, the data is what helps us understand what is going to come out of that AI model. So solution to closing the gap is our focus on good data, good processes, good intentions, not just capitalistic ones. All right, that kind of ends that philosophical gap. The AI gap in the philosophy of AI is that there is a gap in truth, or that truth can be many different realities, and AI is based on a certain truth or a certain reality from the data that feeds it. All right, so how do we fix this, or how do we get AI to be better? I think that a simple little question might help us get on the right track. If you broke your hip, who should fix it? Is it a family doctor, general medicine doctor, or an orthopedic surgeon who is a specialized medicine doctor? Well, I hope that you guys would pick the same one I want. Orthopedic surgeon, I want somebody who really understands and specialized in that particular field, as opposed to a family doctor or general medicine doctor. Now, if I'm in the boonies and all I have access to is a general medicine doctor, then he's going to do everything he can to help me out, and then I'm going to get to a specialist to fix me up, right? That's how I would think about it, and I think that's how many people think about it. So in AI models, and specifically the LLMs, large language models, generative AI model confidently answers your questions even if it doesn't know. And I think that's the generalist that I'm talking about. The SLM, or the small language models, those are still generative AI, but they're domain specific. They're curated, they're controlled, and they're accurate. They're the specialized medicine doctor. They're the specialist in that room that knows the answers and knows how to cut through the fluff to get to the main problem and or solution. So again, LLMs are generalist, SLMs are specialist. And so if I'm trying to get to truth, I really need SLMs in the room. I can't just rely on LLMs to answer in a confident, general way. Last year, I had a chance to attend the Stripe conference, and I think it's important that we kind of talk about Jensen Huang. And he's fantastic. I mean, he's the CEO of NVIDIA, so he's definitely biased in what he says. But he had a line within this talk that as soon as I got home, I went and got the transcript and I copied it down, because this line was the light bulb moment for me that I was on the right track. During this time, I was building a small language model for coffee menu. And everyone around me was saying, it's so small, it's so specific. Are you doing the right thing when there's, LLMs that could potentially do it a certain percentage confidence of the way? And it wasn't enough, right? If a person puts in a coffee order, I need that confidence to be at the 99th percentile, not the 80th percentile or the 60th percentile. And so that's why we are building that small language model for coffee. Jensen said, it would be great to have our super models that help you reason about things in general. But for us, for all companies that have very specific, domain-specific expertise, we're going to have to train our own models. And the reason for that is because we have a proprietary language. The difference between 99% and 99.3% is the difference between life and death for us. So it is too valuable to us. It's too valuable to rely on LLMs, on generalists, when our industry is so specific. We need the smaller language models to fill that gap. So the technology gap in AI really is that missing specialist, right? LLMs need more SLMs. They need more domain-specific, proprietary, copyrighted, intellectual property, industry-coded, contextualized data to move from a novel tool to an industry disruptor. And what's so interesting right now is that you're seeing Facebook, ChatGPT, OpenAI all going to Congress because they're saying to Congress, hey, we need access to copyrighted data in order for us to beat China. And that is absolutely fascinating to me because we are a different model. We're not a communistic state. We are a capitalistic state, democracy with rules as it relates to copyright. And so if the Congress open that up, that's a huge bag of worms, because then we're going back to why were we created? What is our opportunity in the US? And that is to build and to charge for the things that you build. And so again, it becomes a problem if these large language models get access to copyrighted model. So my question for you, I built a more specific coffee model for coffee. There's all sorts of models that you can be building, from banking to government to ice cream to tacos, automotive, solar, legal. I mean, there's so many SLMs that can be built right now. What would your SLM look like? What truth, process, or perspective are you sitting on that AI hasn't learned yet? And I think as soon as we answer this question and we get more SLMs built, then we need to figure out how we monetize those SLMs. How do we give credit to and royalties to those people who created the content to begin with? Because if we don't have that model, like a Spotify model for AI, for small language models, then we're going to really have a problem with intellectual property and legal suits and just gunking up the process of AI getting to where it needs to be. At that point, I opened it up for questions at the event, got some really great questions, really good dialogue back and forth. Some people agreed, some people didn't. And I love the dissension, the contrary opinions, and the feedback that created within the group. It was pretty fun. I then talked about a couple different case studies. Again, the coffee bot, the menu AI that I was talking about is called Barista Bot. And then there's a Data for Good project I'm working on right now with Amber Smart that's working for mission-based organizations, creating some sort of small language model in data, feeding them data for their mission. And then Gutenstack talked about this app I built utilizing OpenAI and how we would have to build a very specific JSON file that took the engineering prompt and create a very specific funnel by which that prompt tapped into the OpenAI API. There we go. And that was an interesting case study and elicited some conversation. And then, we're using Wilder app right now was the other case study that I had up there. It was a pretty fun event. Again, I'll post some pictures. I'll post the transcript below as well. And more opportunities like that, I hope will come up because it really flexed my brain. Super fun to get back in front of a group and talk and then have dialogue with. So very appreciative to OKC Tech and Verge OKC for having me. Beautiful place. You guys need to check it out if you're an entrepreneur. I know they have openings in their co-working space, and it is absolutely gorgeous in the Citizen in downtown Oklahoma City. Appreciate it. Any questions in the comments, bring them. Love to talk about it.